hello, and thanks for tuning in. As always, this is Reverend JR, and now that I'm back from my training, I can start making videos proper again. I'd like to say thank you to the couple new patrons I've got, and also to the ones who stayed along through this transition. It means a great deal to me that you think I am worth investing money into. And if you can't tell by the title of this video, we're going to be discussing the Catholic sexual abuse cover-up, and we're going to see what Lizzie Answers has to say about it. I watched the first part of her live stream, and I felt that I absolutely needed to respond to it. So this is definitely going to be a multi-part response. I'm hoping to get through it just as quickly as I did with the communist fella, socialist, whatever, who thinks that making money is bad because people make money at it. So without further ado, let's see what Lizzie has to say here.
Hey guys, sorry I was paused for so long, so I didn't want to talk about this at all, but literally all of the comments on any video that people are commenting on, all my social media, people want me to talk about this, are asking about it, and I was gonna say that this is gonna be a really dark video, but I feel like half of my videos are about suicide or depression, so this is very in line with that.
You see, Lizzie, I don't think that's true. I don't think that pedophilia is quite the same thing as suicidal tendencies, or other cognitive disorders such as bipolar. I don't think this is related in the least, at least in part because the major problem people have, apart from the fact that children are being sexually assaulted, is the fact that the church is covering it up. But again, you haven't got to this yet in your live stream here, so let's give you a minute more to talk. I'm just breaking it up for fair use here, and giving you my opinion.
I think that one of the reasons I didn't want to speak about this is because a lot of this happened when I was in elementary school, and so I feel like I've been Catholic for a few months, and so I don't really understand the history of it.
You see, here is the thing, Lizzie. You don't have to be a member of the Catholic Church to understand why child sexual abuse and the subsequent cover-up of it is bad. You are apparently still choosing to be a member of that church and give your tithe to it, even though you know these things are probably still going on, or at least did until very recently, and the church actively covered it up for at least a century now. Again, I'm trying to paint you in the absolute best light I can, because this is going to get grim very quickly, and I don't think you understand why.
When I was in like 2002, 2003 is when the first like sexual abuse crisis came out, and I was so young then.
Okay, Lizzie, fair enough. You didn't know in the past, but you were also not Catholic in the past. You now know, and you are Catholic now, by choice entirely.
I never even remember hearing about it because I was so young. But I think one of the reasons I wanted to talk about this is because I was really upset how long it took the Vatican, Pope Francis, to talk about this, and just how a lot of the leadership is not talking about it enough, not talking about it intensely.
You know, for once I agree with you. The Pope is the most powerful man in the world, and he could literally command every church under his guidance to comply with all police interaction and investigation and so on, but he hasn't. If I were the Pope, I would not want these kinds of individuals representing the organization I run, and I would be shaming any members caught doing this to the fullest extent of my ability, either to get them help or whatever. So yes, I agree. It's really weird that they aren't talking about it.
So I thought, as a Catholic, I should address this.
I hope the next words out of your mouth are that you hope that these vile individuals are held accountable to the highest standards of law because your God appoints the people who write the laws, and not something to the effect of trying to explain why they did what they did. Because I don't think you want to be represented either by a group of pedophiles and people who protect them. You do not want to be seen that way, correct?
So I think that the first thoughts I have about it are just that a lot of people in my life close to me have been through sexual abuse. And one of my friends, I've seen the scars on her legs and her arms, how she's cut herself because she was sexually abused as a child. She blames herself. She was suicidal so much. Like, I'm shocked she's alive.
Not the most tactful approach, but nonetheless, I see where you're going, and I think I agree. Sexual assault seriously scars, maims, injures, and even potentially kills people. And the people that bring this upon their victims should be dealt with appropriately. And anyone who covers for these people should also be dealt with appropriately. I sincerely hope that's where you're going, Lizzie.
One of my other friends, I've been around her when she's had a panic attack, and she has anxiety and takes medicine for it, and she would not have depression or anxiety if she wasn't sexually abused as a child. And so I feel like people the closest to me have dealt with this, and it's something that will scar you for the rest of your life. You never really get over it or get better.
Absolutely correct. If you were talking about the victims of sexual assault, rather than the sexual abuse cover-ups in Catholicism as the title of your video implies, then I wouldn't be making this response. However, this isn't where you stop.
I remember in 2016, there was this rape case in California at Stanford University. And the girl, part of the case, released this really long letter, like thousands of words, explaining her experience dealing with being raped, the whole aftermath. And I read it, and it was the most horrifying, scarring thing.
Which really brings up another excellent point. You know there are probably plenty of people watching your videos who have been the victims of sexual assault and do not want to hear about the experiences of it again. Lizzie, I'm only playing it here to keep it in context, so that no one says I cut anything out. But I am very leery in doing so, because you seem to keep telling us how bad it is, and anyone whom it's ever happened to, you're dredging up the bad parts of their memories right now, you see. We already know that sexual assault is bad, Lizzie. We don't need to be reminded of this because you and I are reasonable people. We're here to talk about the abuse cover-ups, the people who did this to them, and the people who covered for them.
But it really made me aware of what people go through who are victims of sexual abuse. Anyway, so that's the first thing I wanted to say, because I feel like a lot of people start talking about how this impacts the reputation of the church and what the church has in place to prevent this from happening. And I almost see those as secondary issues because there are so many victims, so many people who for the rest of their life have to deal with the result of this.
The problem is, the church's reputation and the fact that they facilitated this is the reason the entire world is discussing it right now. You chose to join this group of people who has engaged in this behavior for the past century or more. And you're like, well, that doesn't really matter. The abuse part is what's bad, not the church covering it up. That's how it sounds to me when you said it right there. And you're going to join them and give them your money anyway, even though they've done these atrocious things. These things that you know how they affect your friends and family and children and so on. And you say, well, that's not a big deal. Do you see why I might be a little upset by that?
And something else I wanted to say as a convert is that in my diocese in LA and in almost every diocese, there's a sexual assault prevention class.
Which, again, doesn't sound very good. Do you suppose we could also give them these classes with the felons at the federal penitentiary who were locked up for rape crimes and other sexual assault crimes? Do you see how that sounds a little hollow? Oh yeah, the guys that shot me, they're giving me self-defense courses. Can you understand why the fact that your church has a sexual assault class, and maybe even all of them do, doesn't change the fact that 1,000 children were raped and the church covered it up? Do you think adding a class will change that? Maybe next time we'll get all those priests that were never sent to prison to teach classes on how to not rape little children, Lizzie. Do you see why that sounds ridiculous as a defense?
Called virtus, or different things in different dioceses, and anyone who volunteers, who reads scripture, who leads worship, who's a Eucharistic minister, who teaches a children's class, everyone has to go through this 3-hour sexual assault prevention class.
See, here's the thing. I decided to go ahead and look up this Virtus thing. It's a program in service of the National Catholic Risk Retention Group Incorporated, Virtus Online. That's VIRTUS. They are not accredited. They do not involve law enforcement in the training. Everyone is a staffer of the Catholic Church. There is no outside verification that it's doing anything. In fact, everyone running the program could well be offenders themselves. Probably they are not. But again, it's literally a 3-hour course you sit through and you print off a little placard. It doesn't seem to require any sort of counseling or recommendations and so on like you'd have in a normal workplace program of this nature that's run through OSHA, for example. What I'm saying is, it doesn't seem to be effective at anything other than giving you a piece of paper for just attending a 3-hour class. It may indeed be explicit, but the point remains, it's still 100% in the church. They appear to have their own special background check even, which I cannot readily tell if it has any sort of government requirement either. It's really weird. But again, it seems to be just a thing for somebody to make money and give you a certificate, to potentially set your parish's mind at ease that something's being done, even when it probably isn't. These sort of things should never be in-house, and they should always be verified by a proper state or federal agency. And for the same reasons. If I were in a federal penitentiary, I would not let the inmates in the sexual offenders category decide what programs are best for instructing other people how not to do it, and then just not involving the wardens.
And I made a video about it. I cried so hard I had to walk out because it was so explicit, so detail-oriented in how to see the signs that someone is priming a child to sexually abuse them. So it's really promising to me that thousands of people in every parish know the signs that someone's going to sexually abuse someone. Bishop Barron was on the Rubin Report recently, and he was saying that right now, the Catholic Church is the safest place for children because of everything that has been put into place since all of this happened.
There's a couple problems with your logic, Lizzie. Number one, how do you think they covered it up in the first place if they didn't know the signs? Secondarily, Bishop Barron, that put a funny thought in my head. Anyway, moving right along, no, that's definitely not the safest place for your children. That's like saying that the reformatory is the most safe place to put your children, because all those sexual offenders are reformed by virtue of being in the reformatory for more than 3 hours. Just because you're learning how to spot the signs, and as you said, you had to walk out. What are you going to do when someone actually starts exhibiting those signs, and they're in a position of power over you, I wonder? Think on that for a minute.
Pray the Rosary. Hi, Lizzie from Peru. Hi. Yeah, and every single Catholic I've talked to about this has been praying so much, has just been so sick, like physically sick, thinking about everything that happened and praying so much for the victims.
And even with all this prayer, you still gotta have a 3-hour course just to protect you from the people that your God will not. If your God started this church, why can't he do something about it? Never mind, pretend that question's not there. What good are your prayers gonna do? It seems to me you think this course, what's the point of it if your prayers work? What's the point of praying for those children who got raped? Do you understand the point I'm trying to make yet? You're telling me the course makes you feel safer, not the prayers. I understand that church is a social affair and all that, and you don't actually have to believe in a God to go to it and have fun. But when you bring up stuff like that, it really makes me question your whole purpose in this exercise. I realize it's mostly just to make yourself feel better about choosing this particular church over that one or whatever. You play churches like some people play football teams. The point remains, there is absolutely no excuse for the behavior of the Catholic Church. They will not apologize for it, and here you are also dancing around it. You're not saying those scum should burn in hell for all eternity. I mean, I wouldn't say that either, because I don't think eternal damnation is a thing that should be done, even to my worst enemy. But the point remains, I'm with Philly DeFranco. There is no excuse for raping children. And if a course makes you feel better about the fact that children were raped, maybe you need to stop for a minute, not talk about it, and reevaluate your station, is all I'm saying.
Yes, and that training came to be after everything that happened in Boston. Absolutely. So there were a lot of changes made in the church after that to prevent it from happening, but I think everyone is still horrified and just shocked by what happened.
That's absolutely correct. I am shocked and horrified by this, and that's why I didn't become a Catholic. Anyway, that's gonna be it for today, because this video is wearing me out, and spending too much time on it all at once will give me an aneurysm. If you enjoyed that, be sure to hit the like button. If you didn't, hit the dislike. Leave a comment down below. Let's talk about this, since the Catholic Church won't. If you like what I'm doing, check out my Patreon. If you feel like leaving me $1 or $2 for a tip or whatever, here's a list of some people that have already done that, and they get their name on my screen in big font and also not so big font. Be sure to share this around, spread the word again, because the Catholics aren't. And as always, this has been Reverend JR signing off.